remember very specifically, it was I was walking out of a settlement, getting in my car, went to check my voicemail, and we all have experienced this. I had a load of voicemails. So I'm sitting in the parking lot, I'm starting to go through them, and the first one was from an appraiser. You need to get in one of our listings. And the next one, was a termite company. And as you go through the list, none of them really were things that I needed to do. And so that I remember specifically. I said, I have to figure this out. I have to. In that case, what I thought was, I need to figure out a way to direct these inquiries to a different way, a phone, a different organized way, so that these calls don't land in my voicemail, they land in someone else's. And so that, I definitely remember that being really an aha moment where I said, I have to, because it's not efficient. If the voicemails are sitting there for hours, and I got to pick them up, and then I'm just turning them over to somebody else. We just got a more organized way to get them to the other person.
That's fantastic. What you're hitting upon is what we were discussing in earlier classes with the group about knowing when to delegate. So when do you know when to delegate? It was the time where you go, somebody else should be doing this for me while I'm in front and doing work that's worth X dollars an hour.
Sure.
Thank you. That's huge. That's huge. Thank you for that's resonating in a big way. When you guys started together, Karen, tell us a little bit about what you saw with Greg. How did you get trained? When the two of you got together, how much time did Greg spend with you? How much time did you guys meet with one another? How did you find your ways to kind of get into the same stride as the two of you were coming together? Tell us a little bit about that experience when you started.
Well, the one thing I did like about going to the MIR team was it was a family-oriented business. I like that because where I came from was like that as well. And, Greg and I met a few times and went over things, but a lot of it, because he did have an assistant prior to, and she was retiring, there was an overlap. So I was able to get a lot of my training from her as well.
Okay. So, Greg, when you started with your assistant, because I want to get to the group of how, when you hire an assistant, how much time did you spend training them your way, telling them, look, here's what I do, here's my routine, here's what's going on. Can you get back to those days and kind of help us a little bit? How much time did you spend, and was it every day that you were going along with your assistant before Karen came along?
Yeah, I think it is a hands-on process. I think if you're trying to have someone do things the way you want them done, then you have to train that person that way. But one thing you also have to keep in mind is sometimes there's 5 different ways to do something. And you might think your way is the best way, but you also should be open to other ways, especially now with technology and things. There's things I don't even know that other people can train me on. But no, yeah, it's a hands-on process. And we've always used contact management. We use Top Producer now.
Does that work well for you, Top Producer?
It does. That's sort of the core
Oh, yeah.
of
what we do. And we used to use something called Agent 2000, which was a Remax product, I believe, or Remax branded
a
product.
lot of our people are gravitating to who's using Top Producer? Okay.
So I like it. Again, there's other systems out there. It's the hub of what we do. And we have plans and contacts, and that really helps us stay on task with my job, what's Karen's job.
How long have you been with the
Coming up on 6 years.
community? When you started, how your position has evolved? How has your tasks, your skills, the things that you do? Because you started 6 years ago doing ABCDE based on the community team's setup of how they do business and what they needed. How has that evolved since 6 years ago? Can you share with us a little bit what you have seen there with your job?
Yes, well, as time has gone on, I think probably Greg has been able to trust me with more things. I think I've become more knowledgeable about the business. And it just has been a matter of his needs, certain things worked, they don't work, and we just kind of change accordingly.
You said something very pivotal, trust. A lot of it is letting it go. You have to let go a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the Kinnear team has some phenomenal systems, and the Kinnear team is a machine.
Yeah.
So for you to get trusted, they had to kind of hold back a little bit. Would you agree with that, Greg?
I would. No, it's definitely a trust, and it takes time. I mean, admittedly, I'm a control freak. You know, I like things done my way. And that's a big,
Assistant answer that, please.
Yeah, it's time blocking.
and that's a big thing. I mean, it's a big thing for me to let go of things, so it takes me longer, and I have to trust somebody. I mean, ultimately, it's my business, it's my name, and my reputation, and then that's a huge thing to me. But I can say that what we have, obviously, I've grown to trust Karen tremendously, and so monthly, there are new things. So the newest thing, for instance, is, you know, we share a calendar, a Google Calendar, and she can see where I am all the time. So if she sees that I'm in appointments,
Huge.
then she knows she needs to keep an eye on my email. Because again, a lot of things come through my email that aren't for me. And again, this is the way we have things set up, not to get too specific, but, so for instance, if someone calls my phone,
Please get specific, get as
someone calls my
specific as you
phone,
can,
the
please.
voicemail goes into my email. Doesn't go into this phone, goes into my email. I've got this with me, it doesn't do me any good if I'm at an appointment. So she can actually monitor the people that are trying to reach me, and often she can help them. I'm obviously, you know, in the unlicensed role, or direct them to where they need to go. Or at least, we have a couple different scripts, a couple scenarios. You know, if someone calls and wants to sell their house, and you know I'm at an appointment for the next 3 hours, here's what I need you to do. You know, so
Systems.
it's a system, yeah, so.
That's it follows.
Yeah, and really, everything comes down to a system. I mean, if you're doing something more than twice or 3 or 4 times, you can probably develop a little cheat sheet and train someone else to do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what you're saying is, because this is some of the struggles that we've had here, I have given everybody my schedule, what I do every day, and how we get up. That's Ben Franklin's schedule right there, 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. I try to follow that closely. This is the schedule that we started earlier in the class up here, about what happens in a day and time blocking. And it would help us a lot, based on what you just said, if you would share with us a typical day. You have sheets in front of you that have, you know, the times and, you know, and so those are also for your notes. But if you'd be kind enough, Karen, if you would, walk us through a typical day. You're waking up in the morning, you smell the roses, you are there, and would you walk us through your typical day, what you do, and then as you come into the office, how do you begin your day, in a typical way? Just kind of walk us through.
Gotta get my Starbucks.
What time? What time is that?
Well, I've gotta be in at 9, so shortly before that, it's right on the way in, so that's how my day starts. Most of the time, even before that, in the morning at home having breakfast or something, I'll get in front of the computer, you know, we all check Facebook, this or that. I also check my personal and company email, see if there's anything I need to look into before I even head into the office. Maybe they might need me to stop and pick something up or do some errand on the way in. And just kind of get an idea of what the day is and take a look at Greg's schedule and kind of get my mind set for the day.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you get those items directly from Greg or from multiple places?
From all the team members.
Okay, so anyone that might need you to do something would leave you an email
Right,
directly?
if Rob, you know, he may email me and say, on the way in, can you stop and pick up a key from a client that we're, you know, got ready to list the house, any number of things.
So you're managing really multiple schedules, requests. Rob is Greg's brother. Younger brother, man, you're gonna keep him straight.
I'm
So-
sorry, I may have missed it, but you are not a licensed agent?
No.
No, okay.
Pause
And
right
I
here.
wanted to-
Pause right here. Guys, so key that before we go get a team member, take buyers out, that we have our house in order administratively. Huge, huge. A lot of people start backwards. What good does it do if you have 10 licensed assistants and you have chaos? Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's what I wanted to know. I mean, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I wanted to know from you what made you choose a non-licensed agent versus one that's not or is.
Great question.
Because I figured that if you have one that's licensed, she somehow would have some kind of urge to go out and sell houses and do this, and then now, the time that you thought you were gonna have her, she's other places and stuff. So I just would wanna know
Good
what,
question, good
what
question.
you thought.
That's a great
about-
question. Yeah, I mean, my needs at the time were not to have someone out there selling.
Gotcha.
You know, we, like Alex said, we needed someone to keep us organized at the office side. Because in my mind, the progression that seemed to work best for me anyway, or us, was to have someone in the office first, who was unlicensed, who could handle a lot of the administrative things, and then build on top of that, then build licensees on top of that. Because as an agent, as a licensed person, there are other costs and fees involved. And so in my mind, if you have a license, you probably should either be selling real estate,
Yeah, to justify the
to
cost.
justify the cost, or you should be much more involved in the transaction, and our setup is not that way. You know, I handle my own transactions from start to finish, and Karen supports me in that. You know, some agents, you know, as soon as there's a contract or listing, they just hand it off and they go to the next one. And then it's
Different
not right
model.
or wrong, it's just a different model. I
Sure.
like that when I sit in front of a client, I say, I'm gonna be there with you till the end. I have some support, and here's who she is, and she may be in touch from time to time, but any contract negotiations, et cetera, I'm gonna be there. So that just, I have a comfort in that.
And sometimes contrary to the popular belief that when you work, dealing with a mega team, 141 transactions, you never see this person. It's true, some mega teams work that way, and you lose the personal touch. You're hearing it firsthand how you can have a system where you don't lose that personal touch. Yes, Chief?
I had a question for you then. So in your role as unlicensed assistant, what kind, we need to take continuing ed for our licenses, but I would think that there's some benefit to you. Is there educational stuff that you can take just to keep up with what's going on, or that all filters through to you?
I mean, I think it filters through me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, just
I mean,
to-
they're basic, you know, like the dot loop classes and things like that I'll attend. But anything that requires.
Okay, I just wondered if it was helpful not to take the administrative classes, but to know some of the things that we have to learn, you know, just about, I'll get into it. Ethics
Again-
and fair housing and all that stuff.
I can help you with that, because some of our teams follow exactly that path, so their assistants are on top of all those things contractually. Other teams are saying, just get me organized, get my life organized, and I'm fine with those things.
Isn't that
Two
fine
schools of
line?
thought.
Because
It
the more
is.
you know, as an unlicensed agent, which you're really not supposed to talk about, obviously.
Yeah.
So-
Correct.
Absolutely, so that's a good point, why cloud your head with it, but I'm just thinking, just to understand the ethics part, the fair housing part, that kind of stuff would be,
Not if you don't talk shop with the clients.
Yeah.
okay.
Remember,
I don't know.
Right.
Karen's position is pretty much to organize him.
Okay,
The only,
Yeah, Wendy?
the only times I need is for contractual reasons, because I try and know the contract pretty well. And when things change, like agency recently, I just, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, it's all changed now. I just asked Charlie, you know.
Okay, so
I end
that's-
up finding where he tells me, you know, but,
that's a perfect example, thank you,
Yeah.
agency changing and that changing the
Yeah.
forms.
yeah.
But you're right, then that was my point,
Yeah,
does it
just-
come through you, or,
It depends how much you work with the contract, I guess.
yeah.
Anybody else relative to this question? Yes, Phyllis?
Were you ever licensed?
No.
No. Okay, did you work in a real estate office, but you had the understanding of real estate?
I did, and that's
Okay.
why I wanted to continue on, although I would say
That makes
in my previous position, I wasn't as involved. And, you know, I'm still learning every day more
As we are.
about the business.
Okay, that
Do you
makes
need
sense.
anybody else, Greg?
I know.
Miss Pam?
Greg, how long were you licensed? Our personalities are very similar based on what, so for me, I totally understand what you're saying. How long were you licensed before you hired an assistant?
So when I got my license in 1996, my dad was already in the business. So I basically sort of mentored under him and sort of did a lot of the assistant type things, just to learn the business, just to be exposed to it. And I would say, I don't remember the exact, but I think within about 2 years,
Okay.
you know, I think we decided together that, okay, you know, now we need someone to help us out.
Right, and Karen, have you always worked full-time, or do you work part-time?
At the other company, I worked about 4 days a week, and now I am full-time 5 days a year, or more if I'm needed. I mean, as everybody knows, there's time when it's quiet, and, you know, and then we're coming up on the spring market, and it may very easily be that, you know, there'll be more hours in the office, it might be something at home, and I'm willing to do that because, you know, being a part of the team, and I just don't feel like it's a job I do. I feel invested in it, and I like the people I work for, and I want to see all of us succeed.
Great question. Do you have a specific list of tasks the day before as you come into the office?
As we were saying, we use Top Producer, that's
Mhm.
my Bible. But,
So you're
you know,
hitting,
it
you're hitting the
changes.
ground running, you know what you got in front of you.
Yeah, there are a certain
Okay.
amount of tasks, but that changes. You know, I could come in and I go through emails.
Mhm.
There could be, all of a sudden, somebody needs a listing agreement, somebody needs a contract processed. So I have, you know, I know the day before by looking at Top Producer, I have all of this, but that can change at any given moment. You know, there can be a couple of things added to it, different things come up.
How many
Go ahead.
agents are you an assistant to? Or are you the only assistant?
The only assistant to 4.
Yes.
I guess what would be helpful would be to know, as an unlicensed agent, what are your role, what are all your tasks that you do, and what are the things that you don't do that she does? You know, a couple of the bigger
Yeah,
ones. You know,
yeah.
like, for instance, do you do all your market analysis? Do you do all your
I do.
segments? You do. Yeah, I do too. We sense it
Yeah,
in that.
yeah, I mean, I would say.
How much more can I put on one person? You know, the system is what I'm trying to figure out. Because there's not enough time in the day.
Hint, you're getting a raise.
You
You're getting a raise.
I mean, I'm a sole agent with an assistant. I don't have a buyer's agent. I don't know if I want to rebuild kind of a
Right.
team, I'm not sure, but I'm not doing 130, you know, deals either, but, you know.
The 141.
141, I apologize. No,
Those extra 11 deals to me.
I-
The thing that you're saying is very astute, because one of the main things that we say that successful people do, you place a time value on your time. So if you are $100,000 income in GCI, your time is worth $50 an hour, divided by 40 hours, 50 weeks, 2,000 hours, $50 an hour. You can imagine what it is if you're making $1 million a year. It's not very difficult to calculate. 140 transactions times the average transactions and the average commission, duh. It's $750 an hour. So that time better be used. So, absolutely, in the right way, in the right setup, and hire the talent to help you with the other tasks. That's huge, and it takes one to know one when you're a control freak. It does take a long time for you to do this. God help you if you don't do this. So, was another hand up there?
Well, to his question though, we didn't.
Oh, yeah, so, I mean, just give you a sense, we do about 60% of our business is listings and 40% of sales, buyer sides. So a lot of the, so I do all my market analysis, all my presentations, or preparation for presentations. I mean, Karen's life in that sort of starts when I put the listing documents in the loop, although she creates all the
You
documents
put
for
them
me.
in, yeah, they said she.
Yeah, so
she
Karen creates the agreements for me based on the
Right.
direction
You just
I
log
give
out and go to the
her.
file.
Exactly. So.
Do you do any buyers?
I don't. I mean, I think I did 2 or 3 last year, and sometimes it's time sensitive. It has nothing to do with the person. Sometimes it does, but often it doesn't. Sometimes it's simply, you know, someone has a need and our other agents are too busy. That's what it comes down to.
Are your other agents strictly buyer's agents? It's you and your dad, you guys list, and then are they other buyer's agents, or they do both?
So my dad isn't active anymore.
Right.
So my brother, my brother-in-law Michael, and Steve, they do both. They do both. I would say they do a lot more buyers. You know, they're probably maybe 75–80% buyers and then 20% sellers. But,
And you
so-
have one assistant on your team?
Yes. I mean, we just hired some,
She's damn good.
They must be doing more of their
You're taking
stuff.
all this in, aren't you?
You know what's coming next.
I apologize. Okay,
There's a raise in
I
the
apologize.
horizon.
Go ahead. She wants me to shut up.
right, so again, if you're familiar with Top Producer, there are plans specific to each task. So you list a property, there's things that need to happen. And so Karen puts the plan in place, and then the activities for each listing, for instance, fall into place. And there's 10 things that have to happen on day 0, and then there's 5 things that have to happen on day 1. I mean, and what you also have to do is look at each task. People say, well, I do this and this, it's so easy, it doesn't take that much time. But believe me, if you start adding up and dissecting your day and figuring out, you know, sure, I ordered the sign, and I did this, and I ran by and put the key box on my way home, and believe me, if you start looking at your day and figure out what you're doing, it all adds up. And again, it adds up if you're doing 10 transactions, or you're doing 20 or 30, and you get to a point where you just can't be the person that's putting the key box on the house.
Have it taken
Because
pictures.
there's number 2. So we have a professional photographer that takes all our photographs, and Karen coordinates all that. And that's one thing we did transition away from. We used to have unlicensed staff take photographs, and that's one thing we decided was, again, where's the time more valuable? You know, the end product looks much better if it's a professional person with professional equipment, and then the admin's time is better spent in the office.
So do you measure the house yourself and do all of that, or somebody else come in after you've got the document signed and take care of?
I do all that myself. You know, it's
Okay.
interesting. I've got a pretty good system in place where I'll walk through a house and we'll be chatting, and I'll just be measuring the rooms as we go. I'm on the very first visit. I mean, I go into the listing expecting to get it. So why not measure the rooms? I think it looks pretty cool. You're measuring the rooms. You know, the last guy didn't measure the rooms. I think it makes you look more. It makes you look more engaged.
You
Yeah,
should take
yeah.
pictures,
Well,
or
now I
you-
use a little electronic thing. I'm just taking notes, developing rapport. You just try to gather as much information as you can. And I've done that more and more where, like when I get back, because I enter my own listings in Keystone. Because again, I mostly out of my memory.
Right.
Because again, if I just sit there and fill out the profile sheet, it would take me just as longer than to put the listings in Keystone. And now that you have the workstation and everything, it's so much easier. So, but again, everyone has their own thing. So.
Go ahead.
Do you use Top Producer exclusively for your tasks, or do you ever use the .NET task area?
I don't even know what, yes, I mean, Top Producer is our thing, and then .loop is we are paperless, so that is our file. We don't have any paper.
Okay, I thought maybe you were using that area where you.
Would you
put the
repeat
task-
this one more time, please? You have no paper.
Yeah,
How do
we
you
heard
do
that,
that
we
though?
heard
How do you
that.
not take all your notes? Just, we've been taught to keep every
Yeah.
note, everything, conversation.
Go ahead, how do you do
That's
that?
great, I mean, again, that doesn't happen overnight.
Your comps, you know, how'd you come up with your price?
So it doesn't happen over time, but so here's how we do that. I do have paper, you know, when I take notes, et cetera. But then when I come back, Top Producer, you can actually scan documents in and attach them to a contact. So that's what we do. So if you go into the contact on the right side, you can attach a document with Google or Dropbox. So I do have, it's hard not to have paper, but then I scan all my notes, documents, comps,
Throw 'em away.
right in there and then just throw them away. So they're just attached.
Ooh la la. How about that?
So it's a leap of
That
faith.
takes trust, yeah.
Talking about trust.
That'd be my partner.
Joe, you had your hand up for a while.
This is for Greg. When you hire an assistant, whether it's licensed or unlicensed, there's a financial component to it. There's compensation that needs to be addressed. And you had mentioned that you felt you had lost some transactions for not having an assistant, and there was the aha moment when it came out of settlement. Did you have to, or did you project out a couple months where you needed to generate X amount of additional revenue to compensate, to make it worthwhile to actually hire, to bring an additional expense on board?
Sure.
And did it alter your business plan a lot? Was it just one transaction a month, 2 transactions a month? But there had to be a time where, or I would think there would have to be a time where it's like, I've got to generate X to keep Karen on board.
Sure. No, absolutely. I mean,
That's a great question, and by the way, it's in everybody's mind. You know, it's, you know, how do you evaluate that?
yeah, and again, everyone's in a different place. I thought about it the other way. Can I afford not to hire somebody?
Okay.
Okay, so, I mean, but believe me, I mean, there were times, we had 2.5 assistants many years ago, and there were times, you know, in the leaner months, and we all know what those months are, you know, when you did have to project ahead and really look at it on a transaction by transaction basis.
Absolutely.
You know, and
It's
then
a
we had to
business.
make.
You're running a business.
Yeah, we had to make some tough decisions when there were changes in the market. You know, honestly, there were a lot of things that staff was doing back before technology started to take over that we just, all of a sudden, the task list was much smaller.
Absolutely.
And so we had to make some tough decisions and let some people go, just because there weren't enough tasks for them to do. But so, sure, I'm sure I did sort of look ahead and decide, okay, what is this gonna cost on a monthly basis? And how are we gonna facilitate the pay and the payroll and those sorts of things? But honestly, what I thought is, based on the fact that maybe I felt like I was losing business, was I can't afford not.
Can't afford not to have this. Sure.
So it definitely goes both ways.
Yeah, Charlie, now let's shift a few gears here.
And without getting specific, because I don't think it's anybody's business, is there a financial component to, or a volume component to compensation based on your team's volume?
Right. Meaning, like,
As
did we have
opposed
to
to
get to a certain spot before we hired somebody, or?
No.
What we pay
As opposed to a,
You get a bonus if you do more work.
Exactly, as opposed to a direct salary, is there a compensation bonus, if you will, or something like that, as opposed to, you know, here's the fee, and because Karen said that she was vested in the growth of the company and the organization
Sure.
and doing that, to me, there could be a financial component to that as
Yeah,
well.
it's challenging when someone's not licensed,
Mhm.
because tying compensation to what we do
Correct.
is a fine line, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, so I guess the direct answer is no.
Okay.
You know, there's not, if we do better, you do better.
Right.
I mean, we obviously have had pay increases and there's bonuses involved,
Sure.
but more just.
Merit
You've done a good
related.
job,
Okay.
then we hit a certain
Okay.
benchmark.
We'll know, none of us are getting paid enough, we know that. But that's a great question. Gotta somehow tie it and justify it. All right. Let me shift 2 gears here with Gregory over here. Tell us a little bit about your day. Karen described her day as she comes in, how she's checking everything, what she does. Why don't you outline for us a schedule? Like you have a blank schedule in front of you overall.
Yeah.
Would you walk us through, but please walk us through, if you would, and kind of add the personal component in there, because you have a very wonderful family, very loving family. You spend a lot of time with your family. You spend a lot of time with your friends. You're an avid golfer. That doesn't happen while you are just taking listings every day. You're out there on the golf course playing. You will go and kick Bakula's butt every 3 months in Florida. So how do you fit all that in, buddy? Help us out here. When you start your day, how do you begin your day? How do you kind of evolve into it?
Yeah, it's, and you probably have heard a lot of people say this, you have to take control of your schedule. I mean, so I get up, my daughter is a sophomore in high school, I take her to the bus every morning. That's sort of how we start. So she has to be on the bus at 6:45. So that's how I start. I jump in the car, we go to the bus stop, we have a chance to chat. From there, I go to the gym. I go right to the gym. I work out with Don Fitzgerald. You may know, he's a Century 21 agent, so.
We'll forgive him.
We go to the gym about 5 days a week, and then I'm home, and, you know, once I get home, you know, I jump right into it. I'm somebody that does like to work from home. Some people can't, you know, so again, it's a personality thing. I know a lot of agents in our Elegant City, Columbia office, very successful, but they have to be in the office. They can get dressed and get in the office. Now, when I go to the gym, I grab a quick breakfast, or second breakfast, and then I'm just off and running. So I'm on my email. I obviously have a schedule in front of me each day.
What time is it now? You just finished work, you started
Okay.
work, you finished breakfast.
Yeah,
What
it's like
time, what time is it now? What,
Like 8:20,
8:20?
pretty much 8:20.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
8:20.
8:20, and so.
Not 8 o'clock, 8:20.
Yes.
Did you hear that? Not 8, 8:20.
So it's,
Key. So what do you do at 8:20? Do you make calls?
no, that's nice, because in the morning, it's quiet time, I feel like. There's not as many people coming at you, so it's a good time to sort of,
What do you do at that time?
so I'm going through emails, just kind of trying to get my day started. I will have appointments scheduled, but most of my appointments, I try, again, to control my schedule, I try to book all my appointments in the afternoon if possible, sometime between noon and about 3 or 4 o'clock. Because I know there's some things that come up in the morning, and if you're in appointments and get the day started that way, sometimes things can get away from you. So I tried as much as possible, doesn't happen all the time, of course, to book appointments after like 11 or 11:30. So I've got a block of time in the morning to get through my emails, look at my schedule,
Lead generation?
prospecting, I don't know as much, I mean, there's a lot of details behind that, but I'm following up with people. I'm going through my top producer account, and I'm seeing what I have to do each day.
And that's the block in the morning?
Yeah, all those things. Yeah, between like 8 and, between 8:20 and like 11 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, depending on what my schedule looks like.
So it sounds like what you're doing, and by the way, we haven't compared notes, so you will know he's starting to echo what we've been doing in class, what we've been discussing. So you're bunching your tasks together, it sounds like, and you're allowing some kind of a block and emergency time just to respond should there be some issues, and kind of trying to bunch appointments in the afternoon, the later part of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it works for me. I find that things happen in the mornings that need maybe some attention, and I can also get some prospecting done and do follow-up and prepare for appointments. And then I just find it works for me to have my appointments in the afternoon. And I do, one thing I've learned, I set up more realistic times. I used to unfortunately try to cram too many things in, and I would be rushing from one place to another, and I probably wasn't effective at any of those things. And now I just know, this appointment's gonna take me an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes.
That
And
sounds
just
like
comes
most of us, man.
It just comes with experience, you know how long something's gonna take. You just leave yourself time.
What you're talking about is what the council has been discussing about those issues called surround time. Surround time after the key activity you're doing is some surround time around that, because shit will happen. Emergencies will occur, things will run over. So that's how you just don't jam them.
Well, true, and I'm just literally just sitting here thinking, I've developed this schedule primarily because of what Karen is able to help me with. I mean, in theory, you're thinking, well, how can you go on appointments from 12 to 5 without really having any outside communication? Well, I can because I'm Karen. I mean, honestly. Because literally, someone calls at 12:30 and says, you guys helped me sell a house 4 years ago, I need to sell my mom's house.
So what is she doing?
And so when that comes in, and she may answer the phone, if it came into my phone, it goes into my voicemail. She picks up that voicemail, she listens to it, she has some of the facts, and then she pulls out a little script, and she'll call him back. She'll say, hey, Greg's out of appointments for the next couple hours, we did get your call, let me get some information, I'll help him get back in touch with you by the end of the day. And then she emails me that fact sheet and the tax record. So when I come out of my appointments, I'm not blasting through 20 voicemails trying to figure out where to start. She's done a lot of the sort of the clerical
The preliminary.
work for me, so that I can dive right in. I mean, how many times have you gotten a call and someone says, I'm thinking about selling my house, and all of a sudden you've got to be on the, almost you're on the defensive.
Right.
When I have all that information, I'm on the offense. And when I call them,
Beautiful.
I will have already,
Beautiful.
I would have probably already pulled up the comps. So I don't know what's going on in that area. It looks like I do. I mean, no one can know everything about everything, so when I call them back, I'm in control. And so that's how I can sort of bunch my appointments, because I've got someone helping me with the communication.
How often do you guys communicate on a given day? And how? Is it text mainly?
I would say probably more through email. I mean,
Okay.
Greg's in and out of the office, there are a few occasional texts, but mostly email, and we're in communication pretty much every day.
Okay. Take that a step further. Do you get regularly to have a powwow? What's working, what's not? How we fine tune? Is that done on a weekly basis? Is it done on a daily basis? Is it done on a monthly basis?
I'd say it's kind of just on a need to when he's in the office. I mean, there are team
Okay.
meetings, come up certain
Good,
times of the
good.
year, but, you know, pretty much it's on a need too. If he comes up with something he wants to implement, you know, we'll just casually sit down and talk about it. We share an office.
When does that usually happen? Morning times? When you wanna kinda concentrate typically?
As far as getting, it depends on his schedule. When he's available and he wants to go over it, that's when we talk about it.
Okay. Do you work on weekends?
I do. I do.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, it's, I love what I do. I do. And so, I've got kids, they have evolving schedules. So,
Soccer practices, baby,
Yeah.
softball practices,
Yeah,
on and on.
absolutely. And I
So
would-
how do you fit the weekend stuff there with your commitments at work?
it's, like anything else, you have to take control of your schedule. I mean, and so, if you look at my schedule right now, I've got business appointments in there, that Karen, we share that calendar. I've got personal appointments in there. When you have a commitment, like I took my son to the St. Joe basketball game last night, 7 o'clock. It's in my schedule. It's an appointment. It's a commitment. It's no different than me going to a listing appointment in my mind. It's a commitment. Yeah, so-
Non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Remember what we were discussing? You don't violate that because his son overrides the $1 million listing. That's a non-negotiable, but you can plan it and manage it. So when you have non-negotiables and you stick to them, all of a sudden, the life becomes yours, right? That's what you're talking about. That's what you're
I am,
talking
yeah,
about.
but you have to set your schedule and sort of control it. So I mean, on the weekends, I mean, and then, again, my family's evolved, or my needs evolved. When my kids were younger, I actually took Wednesdays off. That was our day off. And we would do day trips, and that's when the kids weren't in school. And as the kids got into school, you know, they weren't home as much, so the schedules evolved, and now that they've gotten older, there's different commitments, so you sort of roll.
Go ahead, Gina.
with it.
So you mentioned you work 5 days a week, so I'm assuming that's Monday through Friday, correct? And you're working on the weekend, and normally you have your calls roll into voicemail, which she takes care of. So how does that work on the weekends?
So, you know, it's evolving. It depends. I mean, I did mention a little, we did just hire someone else within the last couple of weeks, and he works Monday through Saturday. So one of the things you know, you get a good system, and then you just want to make it better. So I was noticing again, there was a gap on Saturday. I mean, there were also a lot of things that needed to be implemented that I wasn't able to do, so we did bring someone else out to handle those things for us. So,
They're agent or?
unlicensed.
Charlie?
So what time do you stop? What time do you you get home at
He
dinner, you?
What time you call it a day,
Do
right?
you just say, after this time, I choose not to, or do you just kind of play that by ear depending on how you feel, or?
Yeah, I think I play it by ear. I mean, I'll set appointments in the evening, you know, 7, 8 o'clock. I mean, what you have to remember is, if you see your phone ring at 9:30 at night, you don't have to answer it. I think we often expect, I don't know the best way to say it. I think,
You just said panic in the room. Some people are panicking about not answering the phone.
don't,
You're working on negotiating.
well, this is true, absolutely. So it is definitely case by case. Yeah, I'm not the kind of agent that has on their voicemail that after 6 o'clock I'll return the calls the next day. That's not me. Again, it can work, but it's just not me. So, you know, I often do work relatively late at night. Again, I like what I do. And I also want to set my own schedule. So if I know I want to play golf tomorrow, you gotta get your work done. So you gotta do it when you can do it.
Ms. Robin?
What type of marketing do you do as a team? And who does that marketing for
As a
you?
team, so, you know, it's interesting. A lot of our business comes from sphere of influence. So a lot of the marketing that we do is keeping in touch with the best people.
And how do you do that? Just by, through
College,
college or?
a little bit of everything. Each agent sort of handles their own sphere of influence.
Okay.
How do you do it? What do you mainly do? Do you pick up the phone call? Do you send a card? What's your preferred mode?
All those things. I mean, you have to do it all. You have to do it all. So, I mean, again, part of top producer, we do send an anniversary card once a year, but that's, again, facilitated through Karen. So I do send a card, but the card is on my desk. all filled out, and I write a special note in there and off it goes.
It is you. That's one of the key things that you handle. It's one of the key tasks that you do.
That's important, that's very
That,
important.
that contact sport that you do, whether you call or whether you send them in, it's you.
Right.
It's not
Yeah,
someone
I mean,
else doing it for
I
you.
think a lot of people are surprised, like, you know, when I sit in classes like this and people talk about how much did you spend on this and how many Zillow leads do you buy, and we don't do any of that. Again, it's just that we're in a fortunate position where most of our business comes from direct relationships. And so if you service the people that are, you know, in your business very well, and you remind them you're in the business, they'll often send your business.
So true, so true. Are you a morning person or a night person?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, I mean, I'm up at,
That's unusual.
yeah, I mean, I'm up early every morning. I'm even up early, but I don't have to take my daughter to school. I just something about the mornings, quiet, you can get some things done.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm usually in bed by 11:30, so,
Okay.
and that's
How
plenty
many,
of sleep for me.
how many hours of sleep do you require?
Well, you know,
So you
6,
feel
maybe
fresh?
6.
Six?
Yeah.
Karen, how about you?
I'm like 8. And as he gets older, he'll like 8 too.
Leslie likes 13. Leslie's in the 13 hours.
How about time away?
Time away.
Yes.
Great
Yeah.
question.
Very important.
How
Super
often?
important.
How often?
Like how often and how long at a time?
So, I go on a golf trip twice a year, the third week of March and the third week of October. It's on the books. It's on the books. It's not negotiable. And that's with a lot of realtor friends, people we've known over the years. So we take those trips. I usually go on a spring break trip with my family. We get the beach in the summer. And my wife and I often go away sometime in the fall as well. So we probably go away maybe 5, 6, 7 times a year.
How many days at a time?
The golf trips are 4 to 5, usually between 4 and 7 days.
Beautiful. Yes, Jay?
How do you market for new business if you're working with past clients? And most of your business is with past clients, is that correct?
It is.
And do you do a marketing online for new business?
We don't right now. I mean, you know, I shouldn't say that. You know, we use social media. We used to buy internet or flyers for leads, for Zillow and Google Ads. Well, honestly, what I found is we didn't have. I was going to be the one that ultimately tried to turn them into clients, and the agents on our team, fortunately, had their own business that they were creating, so we did away with that. So it's like, again, trial and error, like a lot of us. Over the years, what I've learned is, you know, less is more. You don't have to try to do everything. It's so easy to get sucked into trying to do 10 or 12 different things.
Where's the wisdom?
Spend your money in a million places. I mean,
Yep.
it's, if you just do one thing really well,
Yeah.
I mean, or 2 things really well, and usually that will really pan out.
Gina?
I want to get back to vacation. And we often vacation together, so you can tell that's why we're thinking about that. So when we're away,
Sure.
you're still working
Yeah.
part of the time. I assume that you are still doing that somewhat and filtering things through and letting Karen handle.
Yeah,
what
it
you
is.
have
It's
on
interesting.
way.
It's an extension
What
of my
do
day.
you do when and I assume you get to go away
Never.
and don't have to do that? What do
He
you
let me off the chain long enough to come here today.
That's it?
Yeah.
This is your vacation?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, we should at least paint a mural of a palm tree here for her. No, seriously, what you
Sure.
do to cover when because
She does a lot.
clearly it's.
Yeah. I mean, so fortunately, she's she takes some vacation in a lower, slower time of the year, in the summer. And honestly, when she's away, you appreciate her lots. And again, but having the top producer, it's not like what she does is so proprietary that no one else knows. All I gotta do is log into her account, log into her email, and we can kind of keep an eye on what's happening.
And pretty much, it's just while I'm gone, what comes up during that time period, because I try and plan in advance. I'll look at all my tasks for the week that I'm gone and try and take care of them before, either bump them up or move them out. And while I'm gone, like I said, I'll get up in the morning, I'm having my tea, I'll be looking at the email, and if there's anything that comes up, I'll forward it on to them. Come back from the beach, I check it again, and I send it on. So,
Okay, so you're still working while you're away too?
a little bit. I mean, I like to try and keep her on top of it.
Beautiful,
I
beautiful.
think you're one of a kind, 'cause we all want you.
Where do you go for your training? Where do you look to for
That's a good question.
guidance?
It's interesting, so a lot of times, growing up in the business, I looked at my peers, obviously, I mean, I was surrounded by a lot of great people, my father to start with, number one, huge, and then, Pat Hyden was in our office at that time, what an awesome guy he is and was, and, so you look at your peers to start with, but honestly, what does happen is you start to get to the point where you feel like you're equals, and then you have to start going outside, and honestly, at the time, I just did a lot of stuff online. I'm not a big seminar person that would go out of town for 3 or 4 days in a row and all this rah-rah stuff. It's just not my personality.
So what do you like, what would your go-to be for a new idea or a new?
So there was, like Howard Britton years ago had that program where they would send you those CDs like once a month.
Right.
I always got those and I would
Okay.
listen to the car. That was good stuff. And now Tom Ferry's another one online. I don't pay him though. I mean,
Right.
just all the free stuff.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And then there's also one, look at online, there's something called Real Geeks, which is, he's a broker in Florida, or I'm sorry, in Hawaii. And same thing, he does these like hour interviews with other agents. So it's this same sort of format.
Okay.
And what you do is, you sit here for an hour, and if you pick up one thing, two things, that's fantastic. It's not all gonna apply to your business, your style, but that's about it.
It's not a silver bullet anyway. The point is that it has to fit your personality, how you feel comfortable, who the trainer is, what the message is, and you can't leave off. The Howard Britton days, my God, have leave off.
They have.
Absolutely.
Do you have training with your team members on specific items? For example, one of the things that I had focused on a couple of years back was making more off of each deal. How do I get those commissions up? How do I, do that? Do you guys work on that together to do that? Or is that kind of everybody does their own thing and you figure it out and you take what you can get?
I work together, so if I come up with an idea that I am implementing, I will also share it with them in a meeting setting or even an informal setting, and just say, this is something I'm finding effective when I'm at a listing appointment. This is what I'm doing now. I'm sending this ahead of time, or I'm using this, just to be different. I mean, that's, I think.
Do they reciprocate? Do they do the same?
Yeah, I mean, our team is experienced people. I mean, we have 10 plus years for all of us, so, absolutely, it definitely goes both ways. I mean, I'll learn, very often, we'll trade ideas off each other, like even on comps, for instance, we're going to see this house, what have you seen around this? Just to get it's always great to get a second opinion, you can start thinking the same way, and just getting someone else's opinion is very valuable.
Greg, how about other associates in the office? Compare notes with Eric, compare notes with
Yeah.
the deer, compare notes with, have you found that helpful? Is the environment there that you guys can share without worrying that you're gonna give them secrets or
No,
give each other
absolutely.
secrets?
No, absolutely. No, we've got a great office, just like you guys have a great office, and we've got some great agents. I mean, Eric McCall and I are very, very, very close friends. And Missy Miller, Lynn Deere, some great agents, and we all do things a little bit differently. We have gotten together from time to time, just to sort of share, just like this, what's working, what's not. Nothing's a secret. I mean, there's nothing a secret. There's plenty of business out there for all of us, believe me. It's just a matter of applying it.
What's your
What
biggest
is it?
frustration?
Yeah, what's that?
What's your biggest frustration? Where's your, the thing that you just kind of feel like you need to push through and you haven't been able to do that?
I would say one of my biggest frustrations, and this is a very true story, I take a lot of notes when I'm listening to things and ideas, and I'll write them somewhere, not to implement now, but just maybe for later. And literally, last November, I was going back to some of my notes from maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and literally, I had the same ideas on multiple pads for multiple years. And I thought to myself, well, there must be something to this, because I wrote it down more than one time, and we're still not doing it. And honestly, that's what the impetus was for us to hire this other assistant. And that was it. I mean, so my biggest frustration was, we could do more. I want to get more out of the business. I've been in this 21 years. And I think we do very well, but like I said, there's a lot of business out there. So I want to try to make it more efficient. I want to do more. And so again, bringing this other person on is going to help us with that.
That leaves me more as we close, it's almost 12:30. When do you work on the business? When do you really spend the time to say, okay, I have my tasks, Karen is helping me, I have my appointments, I have the afternoon. When do you actually stop and work on the business? What time of the day? Is it every day? Is it every week? How often? To come up with those ideas or implementing those things. When do you really focus and concentrate on doing that? Because a lot of us have a problem with that.
Yeah, no,
When do you do it?
I do it between Thanksgiving and New Year's. And
Okay?
that's it. Because again, in the heat of the market, you really shouldn't be switching channels. So when your opportunities are in front of you, you should be saying, well, maybe I'll try this, maybe I'll try that. It's like you have to have a game plan going into your season, which our season, in my mind, is anywhere between the Super Bowl and sort of 4th of July. This is obviously a big time of the year for us.
And you do that without distractions. People are calling, people are doing, come do this, come do that. You're focusing, that's the time of year that you're saying, this is for me, I'm working on my business, won't go away. Recruiting will go away. People bugging you, people calling you. Usually that's the time of year that everybody and their mother is calling about switching companies. But how about during the week? No time during the week to kind of work on the business, on a specific idea or plan? Or are you disciplined that you're gonna save that for that time? Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten very disciplined.
You're hopping.
And again, when you look back, you start to see where you failed. You know, wow, 3 years ago I did this for the first quarter. Why was I doing that? You know, why did I get myself out of my routine? So again, it works best for me not to try do the latest thing. Because again, we get bombarded with emails and calls and.
So you log your progress. You log and you measure what you've been doing. And why did you do it that way? What didn't? How about goals? How about setting up goals for you and your team? When do those happen?
So I do sit down with each of our agents at the beginning of the year, in that December, January timeline, and we just sit down. I mean, it's very casual. We're all very open, we're very friendly, obviously, and you know, we talk about individually, you know, here's what you did last year, what do you want to do? How are you going to get there? You know, we're not...
Nothing earth-shattering.
No.
You ask the question, hey, here's what happened, where are we going next? Because if you don't have that, how are they going to be accountable? Do you hold them accountable? Do you check every quarter?
Yeah, I would say about quarterly.
Uh-huh.
And of course, as we know in the business, you know, your numbers aren't going to look fantastic in the first quarter.
Right.
One thing we have done very recently is we started tracking, not the settlements, well, obviously settlements are important, but we started tracking when we have settlements, when that contract originated. So now we have about a 4-year history of, okay, we know we sold so many houses this year, but when do those contracts actually originate? And we have them for each agent for each month. So now I can sit down with Michael, for instance, and say, for some reason, you're dragging ass in this month, or this, why? And it's interesting, you can actually see, I mean, most of us obviously are a little slower at contracts in December, January, but it's interesting when you look at that, like some agents will just have slow spots every year. So that's what I bring to the table. I like that kind of stuff, so I can show them those details and say, you know, look at this. You know, they know how many deals are going, they know how much money they're making. But look, why is this happening?
You're pointing out the patterns. You're pointing out the patterns.
Sure.
Do you run those stats or does Karen do it?
She does.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of developed the idea and sort of kind of get things started. Honestly, it helps me sleep better at night that if something, God forbid, should ever happen to anyone on my team, I know how to do it all. So it's very rare that we implement an idea that I don't know how to do myself.
Cool. Any other questions, comments before I go with our parting comments? Yes, sir.
Beyond your top producer, circle picks, listings to leads, any of those types of systems that you use for your Facebook, for your whatever type of market?
Yeah, we use there's a system called Compass SDS, which is, it's basically a unique, creates a unique URL for each property and their own little website, and then we use that, you know, to post to social media. But that's about it.
But that's not automated, you physically do that as part of your plan that you put in through Top Producer or that kind of thing? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's on day zero on the
Okay.
listing.
Jay?
Who is your tax accountant? Is it Bob in Canada or Mexico or?
No, I use Evan Sober in Colombia. I used him for
You didn't
20
need to
plus
tell me
years.
that, but-
No.
Yes, ma'am.
Karen, do you do all the marketing as far as social marketing and social media and video?
No radio, I post listings and solds and things like that to Facebook, but I think he's recently, the person that we brought in is gonna be.
A lot of the
doing more
social media,
marketing.
the marketing. Rick and Tori introduced you to it,
Yeah,
didn't they?
absolutely. I mean, it's interesting, not to go, I know we got running out of time here, but literally, the person we hired is 22 years old, just out of college. It definitely gives us a different perspective. I'm like an old dude compared to him.
So you have to have a translator. You call your daughter and a translator for you.
But he basically does, his job is new client development and community engagement. And so he's out there, he's the one who's doing it for social media. He's helping us fill some gaps. We do some client events each year, and he's the one who's gonna run with those. So he's more of a marketing assistant. And then he's gonna help fill the gaps, because we want to do more business. And I can only put so much load on this one.
We are, time for one more quick question before we wrap it up. It is 25 off. We said we start on time, end on time. So, but this is really good. This is really good. So, yes, ma'am.
What is the one thing you can describe in a sentence? What is it that motivates you? Is it money? Is it this? Is it that? What is the one thing that actually motivates you?
You know, one
Great
thing's tough. Yeah, it's a good. Yeah, one thing is tough. I think unfortunately, if only one thing drives you, that could be a problem. I mean, I like the challenge. I'm competitive, but no, I'm not overly competitive. So it's interesting. I think the industry sort of helps with those things. You know, I like to win. You know, I like to go to a listing and get the listing. It feels good. I certainly like to make money. You know, I like to help people around us. I think more and more as I've been in the business, it makes me happy when I see my team members succeed. You know,
Remember
that's
what we
happy.
were saying earlier about there is a higher purpose, a higher goal. You help people around you. That's the byproduct. I'm telling you, bringing it all in, the top 5 items for highly successful people, top producers, and I'm so glad that we get Greg's perspective and Karen's perspective. Number 1, they place a dollar value on their time, and they do tasks that are mirroring that dollar value, and they delegate everything else. You cannot afford not to have the proper assistant. Logging their time, tracking what's going on in their day. Number 3, written goals, personal, financial, family, all balanced, because when you're out of balance, out of whack, this wheel starts to look like this, and you're tumbling along. You also heard there's a daily list, there's a daily plan, there's a daily discipline, and finally, there's some non-negotiables. $1 million listing in front of his appointment with his son, or his taking his daughter to the bus stop, or spending time with the family and scheduling those. I want you to know how very, very, very glad we are and thankful that you guys showed up.
Thank
And
you.
we are so.